Thank you, Mr. Rai. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon Mr. R K Bhatnagar, DG Voice, for sharing his thoughts on Atmanirbhar India manufacturing locally. Ragesh Kumar Bhatnagar has served the telecom sector for over 45 years, including 37 years as ITS Group A official with Advisor Technology, being the last posting. His expertise includes diverse areas and functions such as technical, regulatory, training, research and development, standardization, and planning of telecom models. He supported telecom exports from India as Director General Telecom Equipment and Services Export Promotion Council for 5 years. Presently, he is supporting Atmanirbharta in the telecom sector as Director General Voice, which is Voice of Indian Communication Technology Enterprises, by supporting Indian registered companies with their own R&D, IPR, and designs. Over to you, Mr. Bhatnagar.
Good morning, friends. I welcome all of you to the 21st edition of Telecom Leadership Forum from Cyber Media. It is a pleasure for me to be speaking on the issue of Atmanirbharta. Incidentally, right now I am functioning as Director General of a new association which is working exclusively on Atmanirbharta issue. So we are enrolling the members who are registered in India. They are having the Indian design, Indian IPRs, Indian technology. So in a true sense, we are supporting the Atmanirbharta, which is being pursued very vigorously by the Honorable Prime Minister. Atmanirbharta in telecom sector is very, very important because right now, as far as the import bill is concerned in telecom sector, is very, very much on the higher side. It is next to the oil sector in terms of the imports. But with Atmanirbharta being fully supported for the government, I'm quite sure that in coming weeks, coming months, we are going to see a game-changing position as far as India is concerned. So already for the government side, there's a policy on public procurement, Make in India policy. So that is announced by the government, covering all sectors, including telecom. So this is an excellent initiative and a single-handed policy that can resurrect the domestic manufacturing industry. It is in a way the mother of all policy framework that is required to be strengthened, that can enable the environment for startups and design houses for the initial deployment of their products. You see, if you are in any other segment other than telecom, say you are there in the consumer electronics, you manufacture televisions and refrigerators. Even if you produce 50,000 pieces, you'll be in a position to sell them, whether it is urban market or rural market. But that is not the case as far as the telecom products are concerned. Here, the people who are going to buy it, they are going to be the licensed service providers. And one has to ensure that they end up buying your products. But unless you get first set of the orders, you'll not have the experience, you'll not having the adequate conditions which are spelled into the tenders. So it becomes very, very difficult. So public procurement policy for domestic industry, at least for the government procurement, it is a very a good initiative coming from the government. But here, the last, based on this policy, the last order which had come out from the Department of Telecom was having 36 items. We have already shared with the government a list of 94 products where there are multiple suppliers are there. The government will be in a position to say that adequate level of competition is there and all the suppliers are Indian suppliers. So at least 94 items are there where the domestic players can give a competition to any supplies that could be coming from outside the country also, in terms of quality, in terms of the prices. So they can be definitely be matching, because as for the public procurement policy is concerned, price matching that definitely is required to be there. The new version of the notification from Department of Telecom based on this policy is now overdue. It may be coming as early as this month itself. So we have already told the government to insist on the compliance to the TC specifications, because at times it happens that international specifications are prescribed in the tenders and domestic players, they get left out. So when you are procuring for India, naturally national standards, they are most important as far as the domestic procurement part is concerned. In many cases, there are turnkey projects are there for the government, and telecom, it includes the civil works also. If in that case, the telecom product just gets restricted to 15 to 20%. So in that case, many cases, the policy is getting bypassed because they count the overall cost of the project, including the civil works. So items need to be segregated. Similarly, the software component also, it becomes very, very important. So policy for circumvention, this is required to be avoided. Sometimes it could be on the ground of interoperability issues. Some proprietary products, they get introduced. At present, the policy is not restricted for deployment by the state government. So policy needs to be extended to the state governments. It is at present not applicable for the telecom operators. It needs to be extended for the telecom operators also. For World Bank funded projects also, it needs to be extended. And then line of credit and grants in aid also are at times being given by the government to countries, least developed countries in Africa, etc. So there also this can be extended. What government can do is issue a list of frequently asked questions, because the different ministries, they may have a different interpretation of the policies. If the frequently asked questions are available, then it will act as a sort of a guidance to the respective ministries of how the policy is going to work. The policy has a provision for the grievance redressal system, and the nodal ministries can take a lead, so that you see, even before the finalization of the tenders, they can act, and the time delays and litigation, etc., at the later stages, they can be avoided. Then as for the implementation is concerned, there should be more teeth should be available, so that punitive actions also can be taken, because sometimes self-certificates are required to be given, and people at times give wrong certifications. So they should be blacklisted. All those who are taking this type of wrong actions, they needs to be barred. Then on security front also, the government has recently initiated on security trusted sources at the ground level itself. So enforcement and surveillance of that also will act as a sort of a very positive step. We have already passed 75 years of independence, and Azadi Mahotsav 75th year we are celebrating. But still there are 25,000 villages in the country which are not covered, because telecom services can be provided only by the licensed service providers. And when the service providers find that it's not attractive enough, they don't go into those areas. So there can be a new policy could be there. In fact, I had circulated a series of articles are there which are going to be published in the current issue of Voice and Data. So wherein the details are there. Right now, I can not go into the details, but definitely a private networks can be established with a new set of the operators. They can provide the coverage to the island of locations, a cluster of 1,000 villages. They can establish their independent private networks with the spectrum and active and passive network elements coming it as a shared resource coming from the existing licensed operators. Mandatory integration, that is the only thing which is required to be ensured from the government side. So in case the spectrum is not forthcoming, then the possibilities of spectrum allocation also, that also we have indicated. There are many chunks of the spectrum which can be deployed. For private networks, for example, railways is allocated a spectrum. So their spectrum deployment is along the railway lines. But this spectrum is available, say, at 10 kilometers away or 20 kilometers away from the railway line. This is available. So these type of spectrums can be deployed for the private networks. In the recent budget proposals, there is a provision of 5% of the USO funding for the rural areas for deployment of the in the least uncovered sites remote sites. So that can be provided. So right now, government has constituted a committee working on that, and hopefully in a month or 2 months' time, there should be a policy should be coming out on this. On 5G R&D, also, government has come out with public PLI scheme. Has come out with a PLI scheme, but therein capping of the R&D was capped at 15%, and manpower provision was not being allowed. So in the recent budget proposals, a special provision has been made for R&D covering the 5G systems. We had missed the bus for deployment of 4G and 3G earlier, but definitely for 5G, we can be in a position to make full advantage. With the support coming in from the government, all these possibilities are there. Some additional issues, very briefly, I will try to tell. Technology transfer trials as an ongoing exercise that can be supported from the government side. Spectrum facilitation for outdoor trials, that also can be indicated, because normally the manufacturers, they don't have the spectrum available with them. Spectrum only through auction route goes to the service providers. Market access is a very, very important area. As I indicated in the example of 50,000 televisions, you will be able to sell it off in urban or rural areas, but not in the telecom sector. So market access is very, very important. Incentives for the private procurement, because the procurement has to be done by the licensed service providers. National Digital Communication Policy has a provision for provision of the incentives if they are procuring it from the domestic sources. So for in the next auction, which is going to take place for 5G, from the government side, the possibility of making a provision for provision of the incentives for the private procurement from the domestic sources, that can be permitted. And in that virtue of if they do so, there can be incentives can be there. Large scale new technology transfers also can be supported. Then very important thing is, as far the infrastructure is concerned, a common test infrastructure can be created. It could be there at CDOT, or it can be other suitable locations. Anyone can come, plug in and test their equipment. And along with that, you see testing and certification in infrastructure, that also can be supported over there. IPR facilitation is another area that can be supported. Another very important aspect is that champion initiative schemes can be started by the government. For each particular verticals, champions can be identified. It could be in the areas of advanced IoT communication, quantum communication, rural communication, network security, optical and networking, fabless design, NGN communication, and other frontier technologies. So for each championship vertical, there can be one champion leader can be there who should be fully supported by the government, not only for the activities within the country, but also for export-related activities. Some very positive developments have come in for the government side, and I'm quite sure with the industry and government working hand in hand together in the coming weeks, coming months, we are going to see a very, very positive outlook as the domestic manufacturing industry is concerned. We have seen a great change as far as the government is also concerned. Earlier, the government was not interacting with the industry in detail. Even yesterday night, we had almost a 3-hour session in which 50 leading domestic players, they had an interaction with the senior officials of the ministry. Some of the white papers that we have submitted to the government, we have seen that the government is trying to take some action based on the white paper submitted. And I'm quite sure if the government continues to work like that, the day is not far when India should be a global leader, at least in the 5G and new areas of technology for the coming months, coming years. So with that, I would like to thank the organizers for this event, for giving me an opportunity to present my viewpoints. And again, in the end, I will like to remind everyone that the coming issue of Voice and Data is having many articles supporting the Atmanirbharta in the telecom sector. Definitely have a look at those articles, go through that, and I'm quite sure that will be a very enriching experience for all of you. Thank you very much.